Hello again, dear friends, and welcome back to a new summary from Moscow program, second live stream for today. And well, I know YouTube will send notification probably to very few members of our community, but nevertheless, I decided to make live stream because we have quite interesting news, by the way, and I want to hear this news from me, not from some other channels. First, if you have not already know what am I talking about, I was about to go out, by the way, to record the second news update for our Patreon and Boosted communities. I was preparing the program, and exactly at that point, news become available about a big press conference that Russian president held in Beijing, and he made quite interesting statements during that press conference. And because after all, members of our Patreon and Boosted community are supporting my work, supporting me on Patreon and Boosted because of my work in general on all the channels, probably they would not be upset at me or angry at me if I will make this second update as a live stream. And so, yes, as you can see from headline, dear friends, we have sort of breaking news that Russian president openly invited Zelensky to come to Moscow if he is ready for meaningful negotiations. And this is, I think, this could be a big deal because, as I reported in today's morning's update, U.S. President Donald Trump said yesterday, while talking to journalists, that in next few days we're gonna learn something in regards to Ukrainian crisis, and maybe behind the closed doors, Russian and U.S. Representatives of Russia and U.S. Were talking to each other, exchanging opinions, and maybe Trump knew that Russian president would make such an invitation during that press conference. It's possibility, isn't it? But nevertheless, let's start with some short videos. By the way, when Putin made remarks in regards to Zelensky. And first, I'll give you this short video.
Potential meetings with Mr. Zelensky. Now, I have already said that I've never ruled out such a meeting, but whether this can be meaningful. In accordance with Ukrainian constitution, now there may be different opinions about this, but you can just go and read the actual text of the constitution. There is no way to extend a president's term. There is no tool in the constitution to do that. After you serve your 5 years as president, your time is over. There is a provision that says that under martial law, elections shall not be held. That is true. But it doesn't mean that the president's term is prolonged. His term runs out, and his authority is passed down to the Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, including his authority as the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. So what should the current government do if they want to be legitimate and take part in the settlement process? They should hold a referendum in accordance with the Ukrainian constitution. Any kind of territorial issues are resolved through referendums, as far as I remember. But you cannot have a referendum under martial law. That is also enshrined in the Constitution. In order to hold a referendum, you should lift martial law. But as soon as you lift martial law, you'll need to have elections. And this process can be dragged out forever.
So, by the way, he is talking about issue of legitimacy of Zelensky, and he's talking about Ukraine's constitution in quite a detail, right? This is an important topic because Russian leadership on several occasions stated that if some agreement is actually reached between Moscow and Kiev, Moscow and their hostiles, basically, whoever will sign this agreement from Kiev regime side should be legit. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and President of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin are very clear that Zelensky is not seen as being legit right now by Moscow for understandable reasons. And then after these remarks, by the way, Putin nevertheless went to say that
meet with the current head of administration, let's put it this way. It is possible. I never rule this out. If the meeting is well prepared and if it leads to a positive potential outcome, it is possible. And by the way, Donald asked me if it's possible to have such a meeting, and I said that it is. After all, if Zelensky is ready, he can come to Moscow. This is quite possible.
So that's what Russian president said there. If Zelensky is ready, he can come to Moscow. This is a possibility. He will spare some time to have a conversation with him. But yet again, topic of legitimacy of Zelensky is definitely one that Moscow is definitely paying attention to. And yet again, maybe I'm mistaken, by the way. You share your take on the situation. But when I see these reports on different segments, on different channels on Russian segment of internet, first thought that came to my mind was maybe Trump actually was talking about this invitation of Putin to Zelensky to come to Moscow. And maybe, by the way, not alone, but Zelensky will come to Moscow with Trump. Maybe, you remember a couple of days ago, last weekend actually, that was, I believe, Trump said that he is not sure about bilateral meeting, but trilateral meeting will most likely take place. So clearly, they know something that we don't, right? Probably behind the closed doors, there are some talks, negotiations, and we are getting just a portions of their information to maybe, in best case of scenario, have some informed guesses, right? And I don't really have a strong opinion at this point on all these developments. Let's see, maybe anything good will come out of such possible trilateral meeting, maybe even bilateral. But yet again, I don't think Zelensky is coming to Moscow alone, by the way. This is not happening with Trump. Yes, maybe, but not alone, right? This is important, isn't it? This is important. If America First forces will manage to force globalist control regimes in Europe to submission, and therefore also this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky to accept Russian terms and to accept capitulation, basically, to capitulate, basically, right before Russia. Then okay, they can come and capitulate. No issues there, right? Share your take, dear friends. What is going to happen? Maybe nothing. Yet again, maybe nothing gonna come out of this stuff. Or maybe Zelensky just in a couple of minutes time or a couple of hours time will make statement that, this is all not serious. He's not going to Moscow and that kind of stuff. Okay, we will find out. But I think these statements of Russian president deserves attention. And he also, dear friends, went to comment on some other issues, and let me share some other statements of Russian president also while I'm online, and then I will share with you some of the news that I have already bookmarked for tomorrow's live stream. So a new segment will continue. So next video I want to share is this one, by the way.
About theft of our assets. Well, about the theft, we have already commented on this many times. I don't think I can say anything new. You said someone wants to take it, someone doesn't. The smarter ones, they don't want to. This is true. So this is not me being ironic or sarcastic, so I'm not trying to attack those who are not that smart, because the smarter people who are in finance or in the
He's talking about frozen Russian assets and all the speculations that collective West country is going to steal it.
Economy, they understand that it's going to ruin, it is going to destroy all the international economic principles, and it is going to deal a huge damage to the global economy, to the world finance, because as it is in many countries of the world, people are creating alliances that are trying to develop economic development within these regions in isolation. And if that happens, then this kind of separatist economic movement will be enhanced, and the global order, global economic order will collapse.
So that's the reaction of Russian president on all this topic of Russian assets being stolen by the Western countries. And I remind you, dear friends, that it's not just West that has frozen Russian assets, about 300 billion, right, in a dollar worth. But Russia also froze about same volume of Western assets here in Russia. And if European states or the US, for that matter, are going to confiscate Russian assets, Moscow will retaliate in kind, basically. Although Moscow clearly don't want this to happen, and Russian president is warning Western elites not to do this, not to steal Russian assets, because that will ruin whatever is left from reputation of the Western financial and banking system, if anything is left, by the way, from the reputation. Also, Russian president surprisingly kind of, but went to sort of defend Witkov from all sorts of attacks on him, especially from Europe, by the way, and from European elites and their proxy Kiev regime. Let me give you a short video on that also.
The work of someone who works for the President of the United States is not my job. It is the job of his employer, President Trump. And I'm convinced that Mr. Witkov conveys the information in his contacts with me and with other members of the Russian leadership that originates from the US president, not anything else. And our talks in Anchorage showed, it was clear from the context of our talks, that information is relayed quite correctly. Our position is conveyed to the US leadership is completely clear to me, and it's something that I saw during our discussions in Alaska. Because the things that we discussed with Mr. Witkov, all of that was fully confirmed in the presence of President Trump, and he had nothing to say against that. There are many difficult issues, but all of that was true. So I believe that those critics of Witkov just dislike the position, but they also dislike the position held by Trump. That's the thing. You can have different approaches to reaching a settlement. There are those who say that you should fight to the last Ukrainian, and then there are those like the representatives of the current US administration and the US president himself, who are trying to reach a solution using peaceful means. So the first category of people, the war party, is always attacking the peace party. And the rest is just speculation and insinuations and attempts to make one's position seem stronger. That's
well, this is also interesting, isn't it? To call Trump, member of the peace party is especially now, by the way, when US is about to attack Venezuela, is little over the top, I think. But nevertheless, I guess what Putin wants to say is that, well, as a result of talks between Moscow and Kiev, and nothing to be said about U.S. attacks on Iran, by the way, and also U.S. assistance to Israel in a genocide that Israeli leadership or Israeli regime is committing in the Gaza Strip. Right, so call U.S. President or current administration, peace party is I don't know. I don't know about that. Russian president just being polite, but yet again, maybe he was just trying to point out that behind the closed doors there was a talks between Moscow's and Washington's representatives, and sides are managing to reach certain agreements, right, in regards to Ukrainian crisis. That's their basically main topic of the conversation there, and that's what the Russian president was referring to, I guess. And but he is correct, by the way. There are plenty in the collective among Western elites that would love to continue this proxy war against Russia until last Ukrainian. This is just factual, right? Take a look at the statements of globalist control regimes in Europe. Everything will become clear. And when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, special military operation, Russian president shared a few words about it. Also, let me give you another short clip, and I will end on this press conference by this, and we'll continue with some other news, by the way, that I have bookmarked for tomorrow's live stream.
Groupings of the Russian armed forces in all directions. We are advancing successfully. Well, the pace, the rate at which we are advancing it varies. I'm not going to list all of those groupings or directions. If you are from the Zvezda TV channel, you must be aware of all of it. As for how does the adversary react to that, they are trying to fill the gaps. They are trying to deploy troops to critical areas, from one critical area to another that they deem more critical. If I remember it correctly, just recently, I need to check, of course, but we are in Beijing, not in Moscow. But nevertheless, if we speak about Sumy, they deployed the 95th Brigade to another area. Is it a better deployment for them, Sumy? No, they just replaced another unit, and they deployed the 95th Brigade to the area that they deem more important. And the same happens along the entire front line. So they are just redeploying troops from one part to another. We must not get complacent because they might be training some reserve units to maybe to launch some operations of their own. But the preliminary analysis from our military experts, it shows that the Ukrainian armed forces do not have these capabilities. They are not capable of large-scale offensive operations. They are only trying to defend the front line that they have.
And this is true, isn't it? This is true. I said it many times before, by the way. There is no universe, not just in this world, but in no any other universe, by the way, Kyiv regime's forces and their Western backers will be able to regain the initiative anywhere on the line of contact. This is absolutely impossible, and Russian president is pointing out this objective reality on the ground that Kyiv regime's forces are stretched beyond the limits. They are experiencing significant difficulties in regards to manpower and all the other issues, and all they can do right now is to move around whatever reserve forces or whatever forces in general they have from one sector of their special military operation to another, right? And no one should expect any offensive operation, any sectoral even scale offensive operation from Kyiv regime. Although, dear friends, I'll remind you that some military experts before this summer are actually predicting that Kyiv regime, as it was case every other summer, in previous few years, Kyiv regime would launch an offensive this summer too, but it never came to reality. And why is that? Because they just simply can't. They want to. I mean, Zelensky would love to send another 100,000 citizens of or residents of Ukraine to the slaughter. He would not care even a slightest about it, but he just cannot. That's it. And dear friends, that's it about these short videos from Putin's press conference for tomorrow morning, for tomorrow's live stream. Okay. And for tomorrow live stream, Alisa, please shut up. Alisa is oh shit, выключите, пожалуйста. This is Russian equivalent of what you have in the West, by the way. What is the West equivalent of Alisa? Alexa. Okay. This is and for whatever reason, this artificial intelligence start thinking that I'm talking to her. Things happened, and dear friends, and so yes, let me continue with some other news for this distraction. By the way, yes, Nidesh Kumar is commenting Alexa. Yes, it is in the West. It's called Alexa, isn't it? In Russia, there is Alisa, and there is another one also. I can't remember the name of another. Ayn. Okay. Okay, let me continue with some other news, dear friends. While I'm online, I'll give you whatever news I have bookmarked for tomorrow's live stream. Although during the live stream tomorrow, of course, I will have more information for you. And well, on my Telegram and Twitter X page, dear friends, if you are subscribed, probably you have seen video of Russian forces in the central part of Kupyansk. Russian troops are right next to administrative building of the city and a local Spartak stadium. There is a video on my Telegram and Twitter X pages where you can see Russian troops waving Russian flags. So it is confirmed information. There is video confirmation that Russian troops actually have liberated about 50% of the Kupyansk, including central parts of the city. Battles continue, by the way. Russian troops are moving forward and liberating more and more territories. It's a street by street battles, so it will take quite a long time. But because some military experts were in disbelief, by the way, after Defense Minister of Russian Federation, that was, isn't it, or Gerasimov, who stated first that Russian troops are actually in Kupyansk and controlling half of the city. Some military experts, mappers, and so on, they were doubting the report. They were sort of surprised, right? And well, now we have video confirmation of that report. Also, dear friends, RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian armed forces launched a group strike last night on Ukrainian military-industrial complex. According to Kiev regime, Russia launched about 400 drones. So report is that Russian troops have struck with their precision weapons at enterprises of the military-industrial complex and the fuel infrastructure of Ukraine. Defense Ministry reported strike targets were achieved. All designated objects were hit. According to Defense Ministry, that attack was carried out using long-range weapons from the air and the sea, as well as drones. So it was not just the drones, I guess, but also cruise missiles. Also ballistic missiles, maybe a couple of Iskander-Ms were also launched. Another interesting information, by the way. Press spokesman of the Russian president was asked about a recent initiative of German Chancellor Friedrich Merz that a meeting between leadership of Russia and Ukraine could take place in Geneva, Switzerland, and Peskov stated that Merz has made many bad statements in recent hours. Today, Merz was going crazy, by the way. Yesterday, I mean, Merz is out of his mind, clearly, right? And Peskov said that Merz has made so many crazy statements, basically. I'm interpreting now his words, that at this point, it is unlikely that his opinion can be taken into account. That's it, man. Peskov went out of his traditional way of diplomacy, right? A little bit there, and said that, you know what, Merz's opinion cannot be taken into account at this point. I will say quite a strong statement if you take in account how polite and diplomatic Russian leadership usually is, isn't it? Even when they are talking about hostiles, right? So yes, Moscow is very much unhappy with the behavior of the Merz, and I think it's not just Moscow, but many people worldwide, including in Germany, probably thinking, what the hell is wrong with Merz, right? Why he is pushing for this, for further escalation this much, and why he is acting this irrationally? Maybe he is using too much of some substances and actually losing his mind. Maybe that's what is happening. Meanwhile, by the way, Europe is being criticized by U.S. Permanent representative to NATO for not being willing to deploy their troops into Ukraine. This is, I mean, also quite a controversial statement, because on one hand, Trump is talking about peace, J.D. Vance is talking about peace, even Rubio, although he's a neocon, by the way, and therefore from Rubio, we don't really expect any statements that will actually be about peace. But at the same time, their representative in NATO is criticizing European states for unwillingness to send their troops to Kiev-control territory to die, basically, right? To further intensify war. I don't know. This person, Matthew Whitaker, is making such provocative statements lately that, I began doubting, is he actually making these statements under the orders or after consultations with Trump, or he's just going wild, by the way, going rogue? If second scenario is correct, then probably in a relatively short time, this person going to be removed from his position, because this is not okay. He's jeopardizing basically Trump and his U.S. president stands at this point. Nevertheless, report is that European countries do not want to send troops to Ukraine as a part of their peace process. Yes, what kind of peace process when you are sending troops? Are you crazy? Something is wrong with this person, man. Maybe he is also using too much of some substances. This was stated by U.S. Permanent Representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. We have a quote from him. Our allies do not have their political will to do everything necessary. RIA Novosti quotes Whitaker as saying, he said European countries could send troops, but nobody wants to do that, according to him, and he is actually incorrect. A majority of European countries are, not really lining up in a queue to send their troops to die on Kiev-controlled territory. Majority of European states, their leadership may act tough, might make some crazy statements, but they don't really want their countries to end up in an open war with Russia and to find itself in the receiving end of Russian retaliatory strikes, right? But there are some other countries that are actually pushing this narrative of sending troops to Kiev-controlled territory. First of all, UK and France. So Whitaker is clearly, not being correct there, to say the least. But yet again, he is jeopardizing U.S. administration. I think U.S. administration's declared position that they want peace, and therefore, if he is acting on his own, if he makes these statements without consultations with White House, which can be true, by the way, there is such chaos in the West, including in U.S., that anything is possible nowadays, then probably someone will brief Trump about behavior and statements of this psycho Whitaker, and he is going to be removed from his position. That would be best decision, I guess, at this point. Also, dear friends, to give you demonstration how disgraceful these so-called elites in Europe are, I want to show you some video, dear friends, and you share what you make of it. I will just give you some additional information. That Denmark presents EU foreign ministers with their pens crafted from Ukrainian bullet casings, likely ones that were used to kill Russian civilians and Russian militaries, to kill people. And how psycho, so how crazy are they that they allegedly they took bullets from Frontline, these casings, and use them to do these pens and then give these pens to their members of the delegations in that meeting. I mean, this is truly some crazy stuff, isn't it? I mean, level of degeneration of these people that are called European elites is beyond any understanding. Absolutely, by the way, it's mind-boggling, right? And let me give you a video itself about this sickening development, by the way, that is happening there. Let me find the video itself. I know that's it, man. So
we haven't spent a lot on presidential gifts and stuff, but in front of you, you see a pen, which is not an ordinary pen or just any pen. It's made by Ukrainian bullet cases collected from the battlefield. So I hope you will appreciate this small gift.
It's a psycho, isn't it? It's I have no words, by the way. These elements are actually crazy. Total degenerates, by the way. Total degenerates. And they are talking about peace, really? And you think these criminals, this scum of humanity actually wants peace anywhere? No, man. No. This is, I don't know, this is just too crazy to wrap mind around it, man. It's just too crazy. Also, dear friends, let me give you a few more news that I have bookmarked for tomorrow's live stream. Politico come up with the article that even if Macron resigns, it would not save France. Quite a strong stuff to say, right? So political crisis in France has reached such a level that even the possible resignation of Emmanuel Macron, which is being discussed openly, does not promise a way out of the impasse, as their country is facing increasing budget problems and growing public discontent. Writes Politico, the political situation in France has reached a level of uncertainty that experts say has not been seen since 1968, Politico reports. The article notes that the idea of Emmanuel Macron's early resignation is now being openly discussed, not only by the opposition, but also by some representatives of centrist circles previously loyal to the president. The reason for the discussions of the leader's possible dispatcher is said to be the political crisis and the virtual paralysis of parliament. Budget negotiations have reached a dead end, and the mood of their discontent is growing on their streets. Against their background, their opposition is demanding his resignation, and their president himself is looking for a fifth prime minister in less than 2 years. Franco's bureau is expected to be removed due to unpopular measures to reduce their budget deficit. However, even a change of a prime minister or holding yearly elections, according to experts, will change little. Sociologists predict a repeat of a situation with the fragmented parliament and their inability to form a stable majority. If Macron were to leave early, his successor would face the same difficulties. And on top of that, by the way, even the publication is mentioning that there is a growing discontent on the streets. That is a very polite way to actually say what is going on in France. Society is stretched beyond limits, by the way, and for a reason. After all, number of experts are making quite a dire predictions for France, for Germany, for UK, by the way, few other European countries. Even they are going even as far to predict civil unrest and civil war. So France, instead of being focused on France, by the way, itself, I mean, how crazy is that, that Macron is spending more time on the prolongation of this proxy war against Russia, instead of actually focusing on the issues that France is facing, right? But that's the Europe for you today. Also, dear friends, Bloomberg, in the Western world, by the way, meltdown continues due to very impressive and representative Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit that took place a couple of days ago in Tianjin, in China, basically, right? And also, Western media is in total meltdown due to today's events that took place in Beijing during a celebration of 80th anniversary of the victory in the Second World War. Western politicians, Western public figures, so-called Western media is deeply unhappy to see united global South, united world, basically, outside of the collective West. In some talk shows, I mean, they are almost cursing, by the way, rest of the world for being this bold to disobey orders from Washington. Some of their experts and their so-called experts and their media outlet, their hosts, are kind of in disbelief to see what is happening. Probably, I don't know, did they ever pay any attention to Shanghai Cooperation Organization or to BRICS until now? Those people just now realize that there is an actual movement in this world towards multipolarity. Why this meltdown is happening now? I don't know, but one of the topics of this hysteria in the Western political field and the media is agreement that was reached by Moscow and Beijing, Russian and Chinese energy companies, basically, to build the Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline that will pump another 50 billion cubic meters of gas from Russia to China through Mongolia, right? And I reported about this agreement, by the way, in my previous update. Sometimes I do see questions why you are not reporting about this or that. I am reporting, by the way. I just cannot repeat same news in every update, isn't it? Sometimes I do, repeat some news if there is a continuation of the topic, right? But usually 90% of news is reported only in a specific news update, and that's it, right? I'm not going to repeat that in every other update. So I have reported about this agreement that was reached between Russia and China, and Bloomberg now reports that, well, Power of Siberia 2 will turn the LNG market upside down. Putin, victorious in China in the energy sector, strike a blow. Putin's victories in China in the energy sector strike a blow to Trump's export plans and threaten his promises to establish U.S. energy dominance worldwide, the article said. The signing of the memorandum on the construction of the Power of Siberia 2 was announced yesterday by Gazprom as a header, Miller. And yes, I mean, they are not happy in Western elites about progress that we are observing in the rest of the world, right? It's not just about Russia or China or India or other countries. It's a success for humanity, I will say, right? Because we do need this multipolar world, and hopefully we will build one that is going to be more just, not ideal, because there is rarely anything ideal, right? It's not going to be ideal, but definitely going to be better than this Western dominant world, unilateral dominance of the West, right? During the only last 2, 3, 4 decades, by the way, due to policies of the Western ruling elites, let's say, at least 3 to 4 million people were killed all over the world, and more than 300 million people were turned to refugees, were forced to leave their homeland, their homes and the homeland. I mean, quite devastating numbers there, isn't it? And I believe I saw this report about this outcome of a dominance of the collective West in Joe Rogan's show, when Joe Rogan has had one of the outspoken America First public figures. I cannot remember them. His name is Dave, by the way. I'm always, struggling to remember his surname. So, anyways, that's the. I believe that's the video where I saw these numbers, where I hear these numbers. Anyways, a few more news, dear friends. Kommersant newspaper is reporting that U.S. seeks Europe to stop using Russian oil, according to New York Times. Data from February report by the Center of Research on Energy and Clear Air, according to which Europe spent more money on importing Russian oil in 2024 than on military support for Ukraine, New York Times reports. Europe imported Russian oil for $25.5 billion, according to New York Times, and they spent on assistance of Kiev regime $21.7 billion. I don't know how accurate New York Post, sorry, not New York Times, but New York Post is about this, but it could be true. I don't know. According to publication, along with the rejection of Russian oil, Washington expects Europe to support sanctions against the main importer of the Russian energy resources, China, India, and Turkey. New York Post notes that this idea is now not new, but the White House returned to its active consideration after attempts to bring Russia and Ukraine to peace through negotiations reached dead end. I am very disappointed in President Putin. Donald Trump said the day before, yes, I mean, every other day Trump is reiterating that he's not happy with Putin. Why? I mean, it's not Putin's job, by the way, to keep Trump happy. But anyways, I mean, this is Trump. We are commenting Trump statements just because he's president of US. Otherwise, I would not care ever what that personality has to say, man, about anything. Literally anything, right? So it is what it is. Let's see how successful Washington will be, and it's all fake news, fake narratives, isn't it? U.S. is not interested, by the way, in cutting Europe from Russian energy source because of the Ukrainian crisis. This is not correct. What U.S. is interested is in to actually cut Europe from Russia in every possible ways, right? Because they know perfectly well this will further accelerate the industrialization of Europe, European economies, and where those companies from Europe, not all, some of them will get bust, isn't it? But some of them will survive, right? And where those surviving companies gonna go? Where they're gonna transfer their manufacturing capabilities from Europe? Most likely in the United States, especially when they see what US is doing to India, for example, and what they might do to other countries anywhere in this world, especially in the global south. If they see that, well, instead of India now, these let's say European companies or some other companies are moving their manufacturing plants to Laos or Vietnam or anywhere else, right there. They want reindustrialization of US to happen on expense of European economies. It's just too obvious, and that's why, by the way, US is so keen to destroy all the relationships between European states and Russia, and well, they are quite successful in it. For them, it's business. It has nothing to do with Ukraine, by the way. They are just using Ukraine as a pretext. That's all. Same can be said about this assault on India from Washington. And one more news, dear friends. Russian foreign minister commented on U.S. assault on India, and he stated basically that Russia appreciates India standing up to U.S. Pressure. So Moscow appreciates the fact that India has not caved in to U.S. demands to stop purchasing its oil and other products, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said in an interview with the Indonesian newspaper Kompas on Tuesday. Lavrov said India has shown its commitment to the principles of the free trade. US President Donald Trump, as everyone knows, not only threatened to introduce high import tariffs on products from their number of Russian trading partners. Lavrov said such tariffs have already been introduced, for example, against India, or particularly privileged the strategic partner, a major consumer of Russian goods, in particular hydrocarbon raw materials. We appreciate the fact that New Delhi did not bend under the pressure and remains committed to their principles of free trade. Lavrov told the Compass their principles that the Americans have extolled for so many years, if not decades, and now the Americans have betrayed these principles, Lavrov said. And well, I mean, does he has a point there? Of course he does, right? Of course he does. It was the Western world, by the way, that was pushing everywhere free trade, and now it's the US that is actually against free trade, right? But all these rules, by the way, I mean, these Western rules, right? They love to say in the West, rules-based order. All this nonsense is, by the way, just for talk, right? In reality, there is no rules. There is no rules, by the way. All Western ruling class wants to, everyone to obey, and whatever they want, that's the rule in that particular point. But not for West itself, no, and for others. West never acknowledge accepts existence of any rules, man. They were always doing whatever they want, and they were always quite effective. One might argue in the justification. They were always coming up with justification. It's for freedom and democracy, by the way. It's for all humanity and this and that. And under such slogans, they killed about 4 million people in just the last couple of decades. And they forced 300 plus million people to move from their homes and from their homelands. That's it, right? And so I guess this is it for news segment, dear friends. Of course, for tomorrow's live stream, I will have some more news, obviously. But yet again, I just wanted to share these statements of Putin today, because all the other channels, by the way, in alternative media, gonna talk about it. So therefore, why not to hear about the statements of Putin from my channel, right? First. So yes, and whenever there is a good reason, by the way, I will always make second update. I know, by the way, my channel is in shadow ban, and especially on YouTube, by the way, very few people will receive notifications about the stream. But nevertheless, whoever is interested, they can watch this video in the recording, right? After stream ends, so I will join community chat, dear friends, for a little while now. There was no super chat, no donation during the stream. There was no donation today whatsoever. Today, yesterday also. In this regard, yes, this project is sinking very fast. But anyways, as long as I can to do this job, I will continue, by the way. But yeah, let's read some comment. I mean, Nikos was commenting, oh boy, here we go, Levan is going to yell at us, and this time I don't blame him. Hello, Nikos. I was quite calm, isn't it? I think I was quite calm. Sometimes it happens. I'm losing my cool, and I'm not happy about it. But it's quite rare occasion. Am I correct on that? Also, Nikos is commenting, Levan, my friend, please don't be angry. President Putin is doing his job, and even if this meeting does not lead to anything, then Russia's military will do the job. I agree with you, by the way, and I'm not at all angry. I mean, you know, and you can see it on my face, isn't it? I mean, I'm not an actor, by the way. I never worked as an actor. I have no, how you say in English, by the way. I was not born for that. And when I am upset, you can see it on my face. If I feel good, then you can see that on my face too. If I'm hungry, also, and if I'm, chill, that is noticeable also. It's all on my face, by the way. I cannot lie. That's how I am, right? So I am not at all angry, by the way. I just saw the news, and I decided to share as fast as I can to make this live stream. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, India blocked Azerbaijan from SCO membership, Shanghai Cooperation Organization membership, and Pakistan blocked Armenia. I think Russia does not mind this at this point. I think so, sir. I think so too. I knew about it, of course. I just did not pay much attention to this information in my previous live streams. But yes, I mean, Azerbaijan supported Pakistan during a recent escalation. And India, of course, noticed that, and India blocked Azerbaijani membership in SCO, and Pakistan did it against Armenia, by the way. Although what kind of beef? I mean, Pakistan was always quite vocal in support of Azerbaijan whenever there was escalations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But at this particular point, what beef Pakistan has with Yerevan, by the way, it's unknown. They just do it for tit for tat kind of stuff, and Azerbaijan and Armenia just failed to this confrontation between New Delhi and Islamabad, right? So yes, and Moscow will not intervene, by the way. I think New Delhi and Islamabad will sort it out on their own. And if Baku is not happy about decision of India, well, they can talk to Indian leadership, and same can be done by Armenian leadership. And Nikos is also commenting, Levan, Putin is just battering Trump. Yes, I mean, everyone knows that Trump is a narcissist, right? And it has become like a usual occasion when politicians, while talking about Trump, are just making some statements, extremely polite statements, let's say this way. It can be irritating, by the way, because I don't think Trump deserves this level of politeness, but they are politicians, right? And especially when we are talking about Russian politicians, by the way, they have a school behind them, right? Political school and experience. And it's usual stuff here in Russia to be polite, by the way, because if you are not, and no matter in which field you are, if you are not polite, you might, your face may get smashed, right? That's how it works. And therefore, we don't, if in the West, by the way, it is, and I lived in England, isn't it? And I was seeing how people were communicating, and in some occasions, people on a casual level will say some crap about each other, as if it's nothing. You're not going to behave that way here in Russia, by the way. Because it's just not safe, right? You should respect other people if you are expecting respect from others, and you should be respectful in your language too, right? And well, I understand this because I grew up in this environment, and that's how I'm operating, right? Always polite and respectful, and if I'm not provoked, there's no way I'm gonna get angry on anyone, right? So yes, it is. That's how everyone is built, kind of here. Maybe not everyone, but most of the society. And also, if you take experience that those Russian politicians have a political school, they are polite, of course, right? But nevertheless, time to time, it is irritating when they are just too polite, man. don't be like aggressive, but too much politeness is also kind of, I don't like it. What can I say, man? But yes, I agree with you, Nikos. Of course, Putin was just kind of battering Trump. Everyone does, right? Because no one wants to end up in Trump's next tweet or post on his True Social, right? And that's how Trump operates, by the way. He might wake up now and write some crazy stuff about anyone, and then next week, whole media outlets gonna talk about it. So that's the crazy world that we are living in. White Falco is asking, what do you think about how today both sides are using Flagger videos to claim village captures, but they can't hold their positions in their village. I mean, I don't know Kyiv regime, by the way. I'm not subscribed to Kyiv regime's propaganda channels. I don't watch them. I'm not paying no attention to them because I don't trust single word that comes out from Kyiv or Kyiv propaganda. I'm just ignoring them, right? Like 99%. Sometimes because Zelensky is formerly head of the regime there, this Western-backed terrorist regime, when Zelensky does make some statements, I just have no option but to pay attention to it, right? Otherwise, I just don't care what Zelensky's propaganda outlets are sharing. They lie so much, by the way, day in, day out, that I struggle to understand how anybody can trust them, right? And they have made videos, by the way, like months ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, right? And they are publishing those videos now. And you think that can be taken seriously, or those sources can be taken seriously? And when it comes to Russian side, by the way, well, let the Kyiv regime's forces make video in very same place where Russian troops made video, for example, in Kupyansk. Sometimes this is high intensity conflict, isn't it? Sometimes there might be some local scale success on part of our enemy. They might be able to reclaim certain territories here and there, right? This is a 1,300-kilometer front line, by the way, more, actually. So, in some areas, this line of factual control might change slightest, but in general, hardly anybody who actually pays attention to real developments on the line of contact, hardly anyone has any doubts that initiative is completely in Russian hands and Russian troops are advancing, right, all along the front line, by the way. It is what it is. If you ask her, if you only watch Western publications, and unfortunately due to my job, I just have no option but to, pay attention to the Western media, so-called media. If you listen to them, it's or read only news from them, then it's a stalemate, right? No movement is happening on the line of contact. While in reality, by the way, just in last several months, how many towns and their settlements were liberated by Russian forces? Only in summer, I believe, like 140 settlements were liberated or something like that, isn't it? I reported a couple of days ago numbers about it, isn't it? So, it is what it is, man. And to me, by the way, for me, even though me and many others here in Russia, by the way, see residents of Ukraine, our brothers and sisters, still, by the way, despite all this tragedy, and this is a tragedy for all of us, right? What is happening, what Western ruling class was able to provoke. This is a tragedy for all of us, of course. And despite these tremendous losses, and this is a civil war, one should understand this is civil war, by the way, inside the Russian world, right? And if you know history, you know how bloody civil war was in the Russian world after Bolsheviks did their revolution in the beginning of 20th century. How many million people died as a result of that? It's civil war is always most bloody and painful tragedy that any people, any society can experience, right? Civil war is a horror, absolute horror. And it is a civil war, by the way. But nevertheless, despite all the harm that was done to Russian world, to Russian people by these brainwashed freaking idiots on Kiev controlled territory, they are still our brothers and sisters. They are just being brainwashed by Western ruling class, indoctrinated in some freaking nonsense, right? But nevertheless, they are still our brothers and sisters. And when opportunity comes, they will undergo, most of them, by the way, will undergo denazification process, and they will rejoin society. That's what is going to happen, you know? Nidish Kumar is also commenting, Levan, Ukraine is the biggest buyer of Russian diesel from India. Look at the irony. I mean, yes, there is so much crazy stuff is going on, by the way. For some, there is a saying in Russian, isn't it? Для кого война, для кого мана небесная. Да? So, for some, it's a war, by the way. For some, it's an opportunity to do business. And this is true in every country, every society, everywhere, right? And it's not just fuel, by the way, that gets through Kiev regime's hands, ends up in Kiev regime's hands. Or some other stuff too that are directly or indirectly related to Russia. And vice versa, by the way. You know? I just reported in a news segment, isn't it, that Europeans that are pushing hard for this war, according to, what was that, Bloomberg or some of the Western media outlet, Europeans buy energy sources from Russia for 24 billion, number was, isn't it? While assist Kiev regime for 21 billion. So, I mean, as I said, for some, it's a war, by the way, right? And for others, it's just a business. It is what it is, man. Nidish is also commenting, Levan, Pakistan don't recognize Armenia as a country. I mean, really? Didn't they recognize Armenia as a state? I didn't know this, Nidish. That's quite interesting. And Nidish is also commenting, I think Azerbaijan will complain about India to Israel. I mean, they might. They have close ties with Israel. We all know that. And the Indian leadership also not on hostile terms with Israel. We all also know that. And there is a long-standing history of cooperation between Israel and India. So, yes, this might be the case. But yet again, New Delhi, by the way, is finding itself in a very new ground now. Right? After this absolutely unprovoked hostility from US, New Delhi was forced to not just stand up for itself, but to basically make a statement that India is a major superpower and no one will mess around it. No one, even US. This is a very strong statement, by the way, that will have serious consequences for region and for rest of the world. This was needed, by the way. India had to make this statement one day, and that day has come, right? And Washington actually helped India to make this bold move, right? And so I don't think anybody, by the way, will force India to do anything. Really, I don't think so, and definitely not Israel. By the way, definitely not Israel. No country in this world will force India to do anything. If New Delhi can, stand strong against the US and collective West, then India can stand strong against anybody. Period. But yes, Azerbaijan might actually complain to London, to Israel, to everybody. But and by the way, this situation might resolve for next year. And if Azerbaijan wants to join Shanghai Cooperation Organization, eventually India will say, okay, do it. But Baku has to make some changes in its policies too. Otherwise, lately, by the way, this Aliyev's regime become very clueless or very, they lost their. They used to be careful. Aliyev was quite careful in the policies, right? For many years. After all, he learned how to run the things from his father, a KGB officer, by the way. Recently, in Azerbaijan, statements were made that Azerbaijan was occupied by Soviet Union, and you know what, Aliyev, I don't know if Aliyev forgot or not, but his father was a KGB officer, right? So, was he really occupied by Soviet people? I don't know. I don't think so, right? Azerbaijan benefited greatly in Soviet Union, by the way, and everything they know thanks to Soviet Union. Everything they have, right, in terms of educational system, in terms of infrastructure, almost everything, by the way, is due to Soviet people's investments, right? Even though Azerbaijan is a very rich country, by the way, you might go to Azerbaijan, and yes, in Baku you will see a couple of skyscrapers, some changes in the city. And Baku is a wonderful city, by the way. Don't get me wrong; it was a wonderful city during the Soviet era, too, when it was built that way, right? And during the empire, by the way. So yes, there you might see some new infrastructure, but mainly you go outside of Baku, by the way, and very little has changed there. And if anything, you see, and if anything will impress you, most likely it's from Soviet era. So I don't know what happened to Aliyev, by the way. He become reckless and cross so many red lines. I think that his political career is going down, I think. And Nidish also is commenting on, I have a idea all countries must put tariffs on Truth Social and see Trump's reaction. Yes, I mean, it's not normal. It's not okay, isn't it? When a president of a major economical and military superpower is communicating with the world through social media. But yes, it's comical, but same time it's just abnormal, man. This is crazy. Kukulkan is asking how do Russians feel about the genocide in Gaza. Russian Federation was very clearly a friend. Russian Federation condemns atrocities committed by Israel, and the Russian side was very critical on all the stages, by the way, from UN to Moscow. There is numerous statements with their condemnations of their criminal actions conducted by Israeli regime. So there is no question there about where Russia stands. Russia stands on the right side of history, and there is very critical of actions of Israel in regards to Palestinian people. Very critical. And by the way, Russia has recognized, Moscow has recognized the state of Palestine in late 70s, if I remember correctly. So where Soria Vanshi is asking, do you think that West will try to conduct a regime changer in India? PM Modi is very popular and strong right now. Well, that is the point, isn't it? That is the point where do it through this absolutely unprovoked and barely expected by anybody assault from US or collective West on India. Society there get united, political class there get united, isn't it? That's the reports that I'm seeing also on internet, right? And Modi is not less popular, he's more popular. And even though West, there was enough pro-Western politicians and the public figures, even media outlets, by the way, in India, even they are now on a patriotic stance, right? Even they are on a patriotic stance because they kind of are realizing that, well, you know what, those people that we were thinking are our allies are not really. So West might try to do regime change in India, but to succeed in that, you need to have a base, right? You need to have assets. And if Indian society is united around their patriotic, core patriotic ideas, then these pro-Western forces that exist in India, by the way, among elites too, they would not be able to facilitate a regime change, right? If their Western let's say partners will encourage them to do something, they would not, majority at least, right? I think so. And also we should keep in mind, dear friends, that Russian intelligence services, Chinese intelligence services of other friendly countries. Okay, China may not necessarily be friendly with India and vice versa, but nevertheless, Russia is, by the way, right? So Russia and other friendly countries will definitely provide India with whatever intelligence necessary to make sure that New Delhi is ready for all possible risks, right? And this is also a big topic, by the way. I remind you, dear friends, that despite Western pressure, especially pressure from London on Turkey, for example, to be more hostile towards Russia, one of the reasons why Ankara is not escalating with Moscow on levels that West would like to see is that Moscow actually warned current president of Turkey, Erdogan, about coup d'etat that was being prepared, right, under the under the leadership of Western secret services, U.S. secret services, British secret services, right? And Erdogan remembers that. If not Russian assistance in that, he would be killed. He would be killed. That's it, by the way. And all this idea of neo-Ottoman Turkey that Erdogan and his foreign minister and all the others there are working on would be dead by now, right? And Erdogan wouldn't be alive. So probably this nuance is playing some role, by the way, right, in policies of the Turkey. Otherwise, we all understand Turkey can be very much more hostile to Russia than it is right now. It's not necessarily friendly. Let's be real on that too. But it's not also as hostile as as it can. And one of the reasons is that Erdogan would not be alive if not Russian help. And the intelligence information that coup d'etat was prepared to take him out. So Russian intelligence works, by the way, and they do quite a good job, I think. And if necessary, New Delhi will also receive whatever information is needed if there is any risks, and Russian specialists know about it. Alexander G is commenting, I am starting to think Trump is deliberately sabotaging USA's position as a world power using tariffs, since he is not allowed to run their foreign policy on military matters. I mean, deliberately or not, but Trump is doing no good, by the way, for US with this escalation from countries with which US should have good relationships, like India, for example, right? As you know, hostile relationships or confrontation between Washington and Moscow is become a tradition, right? Since the Second World War, and even before Second World War, by the way, Washington and Moscow were not on the best terms. But when it comes to India, when it comes to other countries worldwide, by the way, Switzerland is being tariffed so much that Swiss companies are experiencing some crazy difficulties now, right? So what Swiss done wrong to US or to Trump or whatever? I mean, Switzerland, man. I mean, what they did harmful for US? Sell too much watches and open too much accounts in banks for US citizens. What they did, man? Nothing, right? And Swiss is tariffed like, I don't know, 39% or something. Does the US administration think that Swiss watch manufacturers gonna move their factories to US? No, they're not gonna do this because those companies will lose value greatly. Those, for example, as an example, by the way, those Swiss watches have a value because they've been in Swiss, by the way. That's the tradition, right? They cannot move their factories nowhere because they are no longer Swiss made. Is they when they are finished. And the same can be said about many other sectors, by the way. What Belgium chocolate makers gonna do? They gonna transfer the chocolate factories to US and then import Belgium chocolate from US to Europe? It's not happening, by the way, because Belgium chocolate is a world famous, or Swiss chocolate for that matter, because it's a Belgium and a Swiss chocolate, right? What are Dutch people gonna do, man? They gonna start cultivating poppies for tulips in US? No, man. Almost half of the Netherlands, but we are fields for this tulip, and they're gonna now move all that stuff to US, where they're gonna find ground. So these tariffs would not work in all fields, right? In all sectors, it's just not possible. BMW might move its manufacturing plant, right? Mercedes might move its manufacturing plant. Siemens might do the same, right? Move some factory in US. But many sectors would not be able to do it because they will lose value. They only are in demand because of their tradition, because of their history, right? And they cannot lose that. So I understand why you think that Trump's policies are actually sabotaging US position as a world economical power. And it does, by the way, it doesn't. Someone has to stop this craziness, man. Someone has to stop this madness because they went just too far, really. They are targeting everybody, literally everybody. And this is crazy. I don't know how it is connected or not connected with Trump not being allowed to run the foreign policy on military matters or other matters, but willingly or unwillingly, but he is harming US, by the way, I think, with this tariff wars. If he was very specific in these tariffs, right, very specific that he gonna tariff this sector and this sector and this and that, and explain why, okay, but just to introduce tariffs on everyone and hope that those companies will drop their businesses in their countries and move their manufacturing plants into US. I mean, it's not gonna happen, man. It's not gonna happen. Swiss watchmakers will sell their products. I mean, maybe less, but nevertheless, they will continue to sell their watches, by the way, right? Because there is demand there. Those watches gonna cost more in US, right? Significantly more. But eventually this bargain gonna go down on US citizens, right? That's why one of the members of our community yesterday, that was, isn't it, said that these tariffs are basically stealth taxes on US citizens, and it's true. It's eventually it's US citizens that are gonna pay. It is what it is. Where Soria Vanishi is also commenting, will Mr. Putin convince China to settle the border differences with India? If the border is settled, it will be perfect. I know it will be perfect, and I hope China will find the strength in itself for Chinese leadership to to compromise with India, and if sides will work out, I'm quite sure they will find their common ground in this very difficult topic. By the way, I mean, no one can say that this is an easy topic. But when it comes to Russian leadership, I mean, Russian leadership will try and do whatever they can to bring New Delhi and Beijing closer to each other. But I don't think either Russian president or anybody in this world can actually influence either Beijing or New Delhi in such a scale to basically bring them together or let them resolve this territorial dispute. It's just too complex. This issue is too complex, by the way, and it's up to Chinese and Indian leadership to work through this very very difficult topic, right? Moscow will help, I mean, with whatever, but to convince China, I don't think Moscow can convince China to I don't think Moscow's influence is that big, by the way, that strong to convince China to deoccupy, or not to deoccupy, but to withdraw from certain territories, right? This is just too difficult issue, and when it comes to territorial disputes, one should keep in mind that there was a times in late 50s, that was, isn't it, when Soviet forces had to open fire, by the way, on Chinese militaries, right? During the dispute on for some islands on the river that goes on the border between the two countries, Amur River, by the way, right? After that, after Soviet Union collapse, Russia resolved this territorial issue with China, with some compromises, by the way. Very island for which there was a fight between the sides is now in Chinese territory. So Russia did compromise on this very difficult matter in order to achieve demilitarization and demarcation of the border, right? And this topic is closed now between the two countries, and China and India have also have to find the strength in themselves to deal with this situation, which is very difficult, by the way. But it's Ostrov Domansky. Many members of our community probably know about it. It's Ostrov Domansky, isn't it? For which, and there were some other areas too, for which there were actual fight, by the way, between Soviet troops and Chinese. And that island now on Amur River is in China now. But as a result of some compromises, we have now full demarcation of the border, and there are no territorial issues between the countries, which is a great deal, by the way, because this allowed Moscow and Beijing to further enhance cooperation, right? So, Nidish Kumar is also commenting, Levan, they will take West support to bring down BGP with their money and proceed to continue same policy as well. You don't know our politicians. I don't know. You are correct, Nidish. I do pay attention to some Indian media outlets, by the way. Many of them have English language channels on YouTube, and I do watch time to time to know where winds are, which direction winds are blowing in that part of the world, and also from India, right? And in regards to India, but I definitely have no freaking idea about Indian domestic politics, by the way, and about many things. I would love to know, but I just don't, right? So therefore, I'll take your word for it, dear friend. West might be able to change the government, but next government probably, or may actually become even more pro-Indian and patriotic than current one, if that is even possible. So, I don't think yet again, India did made a very strong statement. Everyone was, me at least, was expecting that this has to happen at one point, and it happened, by the way, right? And Washington helped India to take this step, and India publicly, for whole world to see, stated that, you know what, we are a major superpower here, and you're not gonna mess with us. Nobody gonna mess with us, no matter it's US or UK or any other country, but no one gonna mess with India. And this is needed, by the way. This was needed, right? And from now on, processes, I think, towards multipolarity gonna further intensify. And Michael Kennedy is commenting, moving a factory takes years and costs a fortune. It is also true, of course, Michael. And there is a process of migration of enterprises from Europe to North America. It's just factual. There is numbers, isn't it, there? But you are on spot on, isn't it? It takes time. It takes fortune. And yet again, in no all fields you can move your factories, right? I mean, Swiss watchmakers, for example, as just an example, by the way, cannot move their factories to US because they are priceless, sort of, many of them, by the way, right? Because of their tradition. They might have some manufacturing plants in China, in India, in some other places where are creating parts of the watches. But these assembly lines are in Switzerland, isn't it? And there are small watchmaker companies, by the way, that don't even have any other assembly lines or any other factories outside of Switzerland. And I don't think they're gonna move into North America because they will lose market. They will lose market. Yet again, I'm not an economist, but as far as I can tell, that's how it is, man. You buy Rolex, for example, because it's a Rolex. It's a Swiss watch, isn't it? But if Rolex is a US watch, well, I mean, just for this change, by the way, Swiss watch, US watch, only for a made in Swiss or made in US watch will lose some 90% of its value. By the way, that's how it's gonna be. I don't know. Patek Philippe is also a Swiss watch, no? There is a. I mean, I'm not greatest watcher expert, but you know. Well, dear friends, I was expecting to have a short live stream, but it's already like 1.5 hours. So, if I may, I will end this stream on that. Thank you all. Thank you all for your attention, dear friends. For joining this stream. Many thanks to everybody who will watch this video after this stream will end. Well, this is it for now. See you tomorrow. And Michael Kennedy is commenting, I wouldn't buy Rolex. It's too expensive. At one point, when I was living in England, by the way, I saw one Rolex that was price was about 4,000 to 5,000 pounds, and I almost buy one. I almost buy one, and maybe I should. That watch probably now costs like 2-3 times more. I don't know, right? But I didn't. I did not. And since then, I never actually think to buy watch. Right now, I have a Casio G-Shock in metal casing. It's a classic, isn't it? G-Shock, by the way, from Casio, and it's a nice watch. It does its job, by the way. It does not worth thousands of dollars, but I'm happy with it, right? So it is what it is. I'm not gonna say nothing bad about these big names in the watch industry. Expensive brands, Rolex, Patek Philippe, or Royal Oak, or any other. Like there's so many, isn't it? I love to watch some clips on YouTube, by the way, about watches. I just, because I'm not a big watch guy, I cannot remember all their Hublot and that kind of stuff. Man, I know these companies. If you say it, I tell you that this is watchmaker. But right now, I cannot remember all. But oh yes, Michael Kennedy is also commenting. You cannot wear them. Michael, you are from UK, isn't it? In UK, yes, man. In UK, you cannot have a phone in your hand. By the way, in London, I was shocked to learn that allegedly, I mean, you tell me if this report is wrong, but allegedly in London there is a sign on Oxford Street. For God's sake, that's the city center, right? Oxford Street, by the way. There is a sign actually to be careful with your phone because of the stealing. This is embarrassing, man. What happened to London, man? I remember very different London when you were free to walk around there anytime. By the way, it was safe, man. Some 25 years ago, London was safe, man. I lived there for a couple of years and never had any issues, man, ever, day or night. And now people cannot even walk around with the phone in their hand. Nothing to be said about the expensive watch, man. They might cut your hand off. for Rolex or something like that. So yes, I can understand what you are talking about. So, dear friends, thank you very much for your attention, for nice conversation here. Have a wonderful day. I will continue to work for tomorrow's live stream, and I'll try to prepare for your interesting program for tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and take care. Bye for now.